This is the Montana Outdoor Podcast, brought to you in part by Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer in Missoula, home of Boss Snowplows, CM Truck Beds, and Diamond Sea Trailers. Just go to rmtte.com for more information. And by Superior Hardwoods of Montana, home of the largest selection of in-stock high-end wood products and flooring in the western United States. Let them guide you through the woods at superior-hardwoods.com. Now, get ready for more fascinating topics and the most interesting people you will ever find in Montana's great outdoors. We offer new podcasts most every Saturday. You can get a link to these podcasts by going to our website, montanooutdoor.com, or by going to our Facebook page, or just send an email to downrigger@montanooutdoor.com and say send a link to my email. It's that simple. Now let's head out with your host, Downrigger Dale, and see what's going on in Montana's great outdoors.
Thank you very much, Manny. And as Manny just said, I am Downrigger Dale with the Montana Outdoor Podcast. So good to have you all along again this week. Oh, man, we have been having a lot of fun kind of getting ready for spring. You know, it's one of those, I guess you call it kind of a tweener time. The month of March is like, you never know what's going to happen. But it's a good time to, hone all your skills and all that, especially since we are going to be talking about, well, it's usually like the first walleye tournament you're ever going to find in Montana. In fact, I don't know if there's ever been one any earlier than the Tough Guy tournament. We're going to learn all about that. We're going to learn about the history of this tournament, which is interesting. We're going to learn about the big year that it had last year. Unbelievable, the weights that came in on that. And talk about this year's tournament. Plus, we'll talk a little bit about Hell Creek. And, that area's gone through some changes in that. I'm going to talk to one of my great friends, Joe Herbold, who you'll know that name. We'll get with him. Before we get started, though, I wanted to go over a couple things. One, always love it when you guys share this podcast, no matter where you get it, whether you get it from Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Amazon or YouTube. I mean, there's about 25, 26 different places you can get the podcast, including our website, montanooutdoor.com. And almost all those have a little share button. You click on that and share it to your social media or email the link to your friends, however you want to do it. But that helps us a lot. So if you do that, I appreciate it. Also, want to give a shout out, as I always do, to our active military out there. So many of you listen from all around the world, and we're just honored that you spend some of your precious time with us. And I hope this brings a little bit of home back to you. And always, if you want to hear something special, or if you want me to give a shout out to somebody here stateside, feel free to email me, downrigger@montanooutdoor.com, and I'm more than happy to send you information, or we'll do a shout out on the show for one of your loved ones, or whatever you want to do. So anyway, thanks for your service and get home safe. Now, let's turn to a guy that, well, we were just talking off mic here, and we were just trying to decide who knows more, myself or Joe Herbold, and we came to the realization, probably neither of us, but anyway, Joe, welcome to the Montana Outdoor Podcast. So good to have you on board.
Rigger, thanks so much for having me. And, between the two of us, individually, we may not know everything, but I think if we combined our infinite wisdom, I think we'd have a pretty good handle on it, buddy.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I know Joe and I have spent many a night sitting around the campfire till the wee hours, and I think we have many times solved the world's problems, and I'm sure we'll be doing that again this summer when I make my pilgrimage out to one of the greatest fishing places in the world, Fort Peck. So, Joe, let's start a little bit about you, just for our audience that may not know you. We've grown up so much here on the Montana Outdoor Podcast, so I want to have folks get to know you a little better. A lot of people know the name Joe Herbold because he's been the master of ceremonies for the Governor's Cup, which is the Super Bowl of walleye tournaments here in Montana. So a lot of you saw him over the years on stage announcing things and doing all the great stuff that he's done for years. But tell us a bit about yourself. Joe, where are you originally from?
Well, I didn't grow up anywhere, Rigger, but My younger years were in Stanford, and from there I just wandered aimlessly until I ended up in Jordan in 1985, and I grew up as a trout fisherman, a stream fisherman.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then of course moving down here to Fort Peck, which I guess I never even realized was here, and so in 1986, maybe 1985, I'm reading the Walleye Insider, and I saw something about walleye tournaments, and I thought, well, geez, here we are on this big lake and walleye fishing, and I was on the Chamber of Commerce board at that time. I said, why don't we have a walleye tournament?
Mm-hmm.
And the chamber people said, great idea, go for it. So at that time, a walleye tournament was the single biggest fish, Rigger. You can have one fish, whatever
Really?
was the biggest. Yep, the single biggest fish. And so this was 1986. We had us a walleye tournament, and Earl Babcock and Danny McLaughlin from Wolf Point won that tournament. Was like, memory serves me, a 7.2 pound fish, something like that.
I'll be damned.
Actual weight. And at that time, that was a huge walleye. I mean, everybody was just, oh man. And then the regulation changed the second year to multiple fish. And so then that second year, we said, well, okay, we'll have it. You can have, I believe you could have 10 fish is what we decided on. 10 fish a day.
Mm-hmm.
And,
now, what tournament was that? Are you talking about that was
the Hell Creek tournament.
That was the Hell Creek tournament. Okay.
And we ran, of course, the Hell Creek tournament became very popular. But if memory serves me correctly, Rigger, we had 24 teams that first year in the Hell Creek tournament. And the rest is kind of history. It grew up until we had like 135 teams under in 2 days. And so that's kind of how I got involved in the whole walleye thing, Rigger.
Mm-hmm.
And then Walleyes Unlimited, of course, it started in 1984, and it was getting popular, and I became, active in Walleyes Unlimited. I think the Jordan chapter, and when I started the Jordan chapter, and probably somewhere around 1992, 93, and we had a walleye banquet, and the banquet was first, actually, Rigger. And so it was probably 92, 93. We had a banquet. And of course, being the community-minded guy I was, working at the bank, and since we have all these people in town, let's have us a walleye tournament, a one-day tournament. And so the first tough guy was in 1995. And I don't remember how many teams we had, but that was the very first one. So actually, we're 31 years this year.
Wow, 31 years. Now, just for folks that may not be familiar with where Jordan is, we're talking about Jordan, Montana, of course. That is on I guess it would be on the south side of Fort Peck. And the nearest access to Fort Peck, reservoir there would be Hell Creek. And how many miles is it from the town of Jordan to the Hell Creek Marina there, where folks could put their boat in?
26 miles.
26 miles.
26 miles of semi-good gravel.
Right. Yeah, it's a gravel road. It can get a little washboardy at times, so you want to just take it easy. But it's a great place to go. And then the town of Jordan itself, I think is probably one of the friendliest places you'll ever go. the town of Jordan is been around. When was that? When was that incorporated, or when did it become a town? Do
Oof.
you know? It was a long time ago. I can't remember, but
Well, I 19. I'm trying to think here. 19, somewhere around 1919 ish, something like that. And I can't remember if that was. Yeah, have to be Jordan. 1919 ish, and it was a post office. The reason we got the name Jordan is some people by the name of Jordan started the post office.
oh, okay.
And so, and just an interesting tidbit while we're talking about post offices for a little Garfield County history rigor. At one time, Garfield County had like 63 post offices.
You're kidding me. 63?
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So, in the, probably in the, after the homestead days, everybody moved out here they got their 320 acres and had these little community type areas, and the mail got delivered to those 63 different places.
I'll be dang. Boy, the old Pony Express was busy there. You probably wear out a few horses doing that.
Isn't that the truth?
Well, the another thing that Jordan is famous for, kind of that whole terrain between Jordan and Circle is famous for these fossil beds where dinosaurs and prehistoric creatures once roamed, and there was a T-Rex that was discovered near Jordan in what they call the Hell Creek Formation, and so that kind of put you on the map too. A lot of folks do come there for that too, to see what they can find, digging up bones, as Randy Travis used to say. So there's a lot of really interesting stuff there. I just love going to this little town because the people are great. And talk a bit about the Hell Creek Campground in Marina. For folks that haven't been there, talk about if you probably know a little history of that. Tell us how that got going and where it's at now.
Well, the history of the campground, I can't, when it started, I don't really recall. It's been in existence for, decades. But, way back when we started, the Hell Creek tournament and the Tough Guy tournament, it was just a piece of prairie out there, and they called it the campground. I mean, that was it. Go park your camper wherever, and so it was totally Russ. It was run by the state, and they had a campground manager, and there was probably a few garbage cans around, and then probably somewhere in the probably the late 90s, the state threw up a bunch of money, and they did a large campground improvement. Made the parking lot for the boats bigger. They put in a shower house, and they put in all the specific camping sites. And I believe there's like 45 campsites that have power. And then, of course, they call them primitive sites, and there's probably another, God knows, you could just fill the area up in that primitive area. Say another 50 or 75 primitive sites. Mm-hmm. And of course, now as it's gotten more popular over the decades, of course, it was at that time, it was the state leased the campground from the Corps of Engineers, and it was run by the state. And here, what was that, 5-6 years ago, the state said, we're out. We don't make any money. And so we're out, and the Little Shell tribe stepped in and said, okay, fine, we'll take over the lease. And I believe the lease to the Little Shell was finalized last year. And so they're in full control. Of course, they're still under the auspices of the Corps of Engineers.
Right.
And of course, the marina proper is leased to Clinton Deb Thomas. uh, from the Littleshill. So Clint and Deb Thomas run the marina, and the Littleshill tribe runs the campground.
Mhm.
And of course, now if you're going to take a site, you pretty much have to do it online. I think they have, I believe it's 5 or 6, something like that. First come, first serve sites that aren't reserved. So person can take their chances and drive there and hope that one of those are open.
Right. Yeah, you can go to hellcreekrecreation.com, and that's where you can reserve your campsites and all that stuff. It's got a little map of the campground on that website and all that. So that's a good place to go. It's got a big button right there that says book now, and you can get on that. So I'll put a link to this in our podcast description, so you can take a look at that and
Awesome.
and go from there. So now let's transition a bit into the tournament itself. Which, how long has now? First of all, it is the Jerry Johnston Memorial Tough Guy Tournament. Talk about how it got that name.
Well, Jerry Johnston and I, both after I kind of stepped out of the chapter thing, Jerry took over the chapter, and of course he's a great fisherman. And Jerry passed away unexpectedly here. Maybe 5 years ago. And of course, to honor him, the chapter decided to name the Tough Guy after him. So that's how it got its name. Of course, originally it was just the Tough Guy tournament, and of course, I don't know if it had a name the first year rigger. And after the first one or two, somebody said, "Man, what are we going to call this tournament?" And I said, "The weather wasn't real nice at times." I said, "Well, you obviously at times have to be fairly tough to want to come and fish this."
Yeah. That's early in the year for this time of year.
So, of course, being the sexist people that we are, let's call it the Tough Guy. Of course, now we'd have to call it the Tough Them or the Tough Us or what, Tough That, or Tough Enough.
Yeah, them, they, whatever it is. But
so that's how it got its name, because there were times that it was just lethal. But so back to the start of the Tough Guy tournament too. One of the reasons, in addition to we've got our banquet, let's have a tournament too, bring more people to town. But one of the reasons I started it was at the end of the year, I would always just park my boat and I think, okay, I have to do this and I have to do that. And I have to do that before spring fishing starts. Well, spring last summer would get here and I'd go hop in the boat and I would go, oh, crap. I was going to do that. And so part of the rationale was, let's have a tournament so you can take your boat out and remember all the stuff you were going to fix before the main fishing season got here.
There you go. Yeah. So that was a way for you guys to say, all right, we're gonna break the ice, so to speak, and get a tournament going. Be the first one out there and let folks kind of tune up their gear and all that. But it's always been one of these tournaments where you're not quite sure what's going to happen, because Old Man Winter can hang on and raise some heck with you. So this year, give us the dates again for that. Is it
April 26th, which is a Saturday, is the Tough Guy date. And of course, our Jordan chapter banquet is on the Friday night, April 25th. And of course, and that's an interesting story in itself, Rigger. If We have I digress.
Mm-hmm.
We serve prime rib at our walleye banquet. The first one or two banquets, we tried to serve walleye, and what a pain in the ass. And so we were sitting around talking about the tough guy or our banquet, and I said, we live out here in beef country.
Right. Yeah.
It should be a celebration of who we are. And so we decided, well, that's it. Let's serve prime rib. And so it has been prime rib at our banquet for probably, the banquet is, say, 35 years old. So for at least 31 or 32 years, it's been prime rib at our banquet.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to take a quick break here, but when we come back, I want to talk a bit about last year's tournament and kind of fill folks in on how that went. Now, I think it surprised a lot of people, so we'll talk about that and a whole bunch of other things about this great area called the Hell Creek area right there by Jordan, Montana. So we'll do that right after I tell you a little bit about my friends at Superior Hardwoods of Montana. Have you ever thought of doing a DIY project for your home? I've known John, Corey, and the rest of the gang at Superior Hardwoods in Missoula, Montana for a very long time. They've always been there for me, and I know they'll be there for you too. A true partner to help complete your DIY home improvements. Heck, they have been doing that since 1977. Whether you're dreaming of a charming accent wall or a complete floor makeover, they have you covered. There is no better feeling than the satisfaction of adding a touch of history to your home with their unique reclaimed woods. Now, I'm not just talking about lumber here. I'm talking about a story waiting to be told. My friends at Superior Hardwoods of Montana proudly stock over 11 acres of stunning reclaimed wood, perfect for turning your house into a home that is as unique as, well, you are. And don't worry, if you're just starting out with your first DIY project, the pre-finished flooring, pre-finished paneling, and trim options at Superior Hardwoods make it easier than ever to tackle any project like you've been doing it for years. So what do you say, gang? Why not dive into your next DIY adventure with confidence and let the decades of experience that they have at Superior Hardwoods take you through every step? Need a little inspiration? Well, visit them online at superior-hardwoods.com. Now, that's a great place to start out by browsing their website, again, at superior-hardwoods.com. That's superior-hardwoods.com. Not only will they help guide you through your home makeover with all their amazing ideas and their over 100,000 square feet of the most incredible wood flooring, paneling, and other wood products, they'll actually guide you through the woods. Now, what do I mean by that? I'll give you an example. First time I went to their showroom just south of Missoula on Highway 93 South, I was blown away by the unbelievable selection of different types of wood from not just Montana, but from all over the world. Best of all, I sat down with them, told them a bit about what I was thinking of doing, and the next thing I knew, I was hearing incredible ideas and learning about the perfect wood for what I wanted to do. That is what I mean by letting them guide you through the woods at Superior Hardwoods of Montana. Go see them. We are back here on the Montana Outdoor Podcast. I am with my buddy Joe Herbold, who is talking about the Jerry Johnson Memorial Tough Guy Tournament. The first tournament kind of gets the season going. And last year, back in, well, what was it? I'm trying to remember the date of when that was. 24, we had, I can't remember now, but it was around the same time. And Joe, this I think I don't know if it surprised you, but it surprised me when I saw those weights come in. Bob Magnuson and Jerome Papineau were the winners of that tournament. They took in, now this is a 5 fish, your 5 best fish, 60.35 pounds. Did that surprise you, that weight?
Oh boy, I think, for the guys who made that run, maybe, I think the 60 pounds was probably a surprise. 50 pounds is kind of our, our big fish go to, that's a 10-pound average right now.
Yeah.
So, 50 pounds might not have been a surprise, but when it tapped at 60 pounds, everybody was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. And then Wayne Wilcox and Gage Gordon, they bring in 58.11, so fairly close. But, like I say, when you're talking usually around that 50-pound mark and this thing shatters it by 10 pounds, what do you attribute that to? It seems like all the tournaments we're seeing bigger weights than that. This fishery has just become, well, dare I say, world class, hasn't it?
It is. It has been for years, Rigger. And so just for a second, to give people an idea, we're talking 60 pounds. That may not mean a lot. So to give them sort of a reference, that's a 12-pound average fish. And
right.
So in the walleye world, a 30-inch long walleye is about 10 pounds. So to give them some sort of a reference, that's 5 fish that would be probably, say 32 inches-ish. And, of course, in Montana, in our walleye tournaments, they're catch and release walleye tournaments.
Right.
And we do a length to weight conversion. So that's a converted weight. So those fish, were in that 32-inch range to come up with that 60 pounds, just to give people a reference. So, but what's happening with the fishery is, as I've talked to our biologists, is all of these, we have a surplus of big fish right now, and this is a result of the 2011 high water in Fort Peck. And apparently in that time frame, we have a lot of natural spawn that we don't typically get. And so these fish are, they're pushing 14, 15 years old now. And of course, so here in the next 3 to 5 years or whatever, a lot of these big fish are going to start dying of natural causes. And so we may not have a surplus of big fish. We'll still have big fish. Fort Peck has always had big walleye. And so in the spring, those big fish kind of congregate as they're migrating down the lake, and Bob and Jerome happen to find the right spot. We were talking yesterday, Rigger. We talk about having the fastest boat, and so we've got boats that run 60 miles an hour plus, and Bob got probably a 20-year-old boat that he does still on the same motor. He doesn't like to work it that hard, and he idled from Hell Creek up the lake probably 25 miles or plus at 35 miles an hour. Of course, all the fast boats are already up there.
Yeah.
And Bob pulled into his spot, and the fun was on. And of course, what's amazing about that 60 pounds, Rigger, is that Bob was back at the Hell Creek Marina before noon, I think by 11 o'clock in the morning.
You're kidding me. So he had nailed all those 5 fish, he and Jerome did, before noon.
Yeah, well, before 11.
Wow.
At 11 o'clock they left. And of course, we put them in the live well, and you have to keep them alive. Well, the live well was so full, they were worried about these fish maybe dying.
Oh, yeah.
So they said, that's it, we got to go. And
well,
this year,
to give folks an idea, the fish, the way the fish went out here is They had one fish at 12.38. Fish number 2 was 11.42. Fish number 3 was 13.69 pounds. Fish 4 was 11.74, and fish 5 was 11.12. So that kind of gives you the breakdown of those fish. And, for the way that these tournaments go, it's the best 5 that you get. It's not just the first 5 you catch, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So
yeah.
How does one, for some of our listeners that have never fished a walleye tournament before or any fish tournament before, take us through that decision-making process of how do you know, okay, this we're keeping this guy. This is what, like you say, for Bob and Jerome, by 11 or so, they're saying, hey, I think we're going to call it right here. This is our best 5. What tells you that should be the way to close out?
Well, we do allow culling in our tournaments, Rigger. So let's say I have an 8-pounder or a 5-pounder in my live well.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just keep on fishing. And if I catch a bigger one, I release it. Well, with those fish at all over 11 pounds, they were at the point where it's like, we're not going to get much better.
Mm-hmm.
So they just decided it was time to just, surrender.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, what was the weather like last year? Because you're right there in late April. Do you recall what the temperature was that day?
Geez, Rigger. I can tell you what it was yesterday. I'm sure it wasn't. I don't think it was wretched. I think it was not a bad day, as I recall. I think it was it certainly wasn't in the 60s and 70s, which we have had in the past. Mm-hmm. I can remember one year, it was in the 70s. We were fishing in our T-shirt, getting sunburned.
Mm-hmm.
And my partner and I started catching walleye in that tough guy. As it goes in my world, Rigger, if I'm catching fish, I told my partner, I said, Danny, we're catching fish. And I said, I'm afraid everybody else is going to be doing it too, except better. And sure enough, it was. But I can remember, talking about weather, we have, we have guys that will boat up from Fort Peck. And I can remember one year, some guys boated up from Fort Peck.
Yeah.
And it was raining and freezing and cold. And when they got to Hell Creek, they had to fill up with gas. Mm-hmm. And they pulled into the gas dock and they looked like Yetis in their boat. They were just covered in ice.
In ice. Yeah. How many mile boat ride is it from Fort Peck, Montana to Hell Creek?
It's about 35 miles to the dam. So, not a terrible long ways, but.
Well, 35 miles in a boat when it's borderline freezing, that's a long damn ride.
Oh boy. And to make matters worse, Rigger, they were in a council boat, which, to reference to the people out there, that means they didn't have a windshield.
Right.
So that water is hitting them full frontal.
Oh, man. Yeah. And now you go, oh, goody, we made it. Now we get to fish a tournament and then try to go home. Oh, my God.
One year in the tournament, this was early on, probably the second or third tough guy. We had the fog move. Well, it was a foggy morning, and this was before we had our GPS map. And it was foggy, and those guys ran from the dam to Hell Creek in the fog. That would be an event that I would never want to do.
Oh, yeah. Gosh, because then you're going to get lost. You're going to hit something. Yeah, that's got to be tough.
Now with our lake maps, it wouldn't be any big deal. But, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, and so back to those big fish, I mean, what an unexpected event. And then of course, several locations up there, you know, and I guess, historically, if we want to talk about how the fishing has evolved, Rigger, how should we go to that route?
Yeah.
So early on in those early tough guy tournaments, if you caught a fish, even if it was a 14-incher, you would bring it in because you might be in the money.
Yeah.
One year, there were probably 40 teams in the tournament, and we had to draw names for third and fourth place because only 2 boats caught fish.
I'll be damned. Wow.
And then, then people got the brilliant idea, let's run farther up west, and they started catching some fish. They started running 50 miles down the dry arm and getting fish. And so what has happened, compliments of bigger, faster boats, better electronics, over the years, we have just become so much better fishermen, Rigger, and the weights just keep going up and up. And of course, I think we're probably fairly close to the apex right now of that,
Right.
Like I say, 30 inches is kind of anything over 30 inches is pretty special.
Yeah. I remember the first. I fish with my buddy the captain all the time, and of course you hear the captain on the Montana Outdoor Radio Show around. But the first time I broke we call it the 30-inch club, when we're fishing for walleye. And the first time I caught my first 30-incher, I was pretty damn excited. And that's an impressive fish. But in these tournaments where you get these great fishermen out there, 30 inches is a pretty common deal and pretty exciting. Now, give us an idea of are there boundaries for this tournament, Joe, or is it the entire lake?
Well, historically, there was never a boundary, Rigger.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, last year the fishing game decided that there had to be a boundary.
Okay.
So I think they have reeled that in, and to tell you the truth, I'm not sure where it is. I honestly couldn't tell you. Probably anyway, it has ratcheted in, but there's still a lot of water for people to run to. So
sure. Well, it's a huge lake. You've got 34 miles or whatever it is, and so I mean there's a lot of lake to fish. Has there, over time, have you noticed there is a particular area that seems to be a little hotter during that time of year to catch fish, or has it just been kind of all over the map?
Well, no, there are specific areas. I guess we'd call it migration or pre-spawn. Down the dry arm has historically been a real good spot for big fish, Rigger, and that's a pre-spawn area down there. And of course, then if we go anywhere from say 35 miles to 60 or 55 miles west of Hell Creek, up the lake, those fish are migrating up there. Those big fish are starting to move. They're coming down the lake, moving towards the main lake, coming down from the river. And so that western portion of the lake is really good fishing for big fish in the spring. Mm-hmm. And so that's where those guys have started going to, is up into that western end where those big fish are.
Mm-hmm. Now, are most of these guys that are fishing the Tough Guy tournament, are they jigging? That seems to be the go-to anymore these days of when people are in walleye tournaments. Is that pretty much what it is for that time of the year, being that's a very early tournament?
It is. It's a jig and minnow bite.
Jig and minnow, okay.
Yeah, we hear people talk about shiver minnows and stuff now. And not much of that because those fish are, they're not real active, Rigger, because we're talking the water temperature is probably not far above freezing because the ice hasn't been out that long.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. That was going to be my next question. And we're going to take another last quick break here. But when we come back, I want you to talk a bit about what you use and kind of what that technique is, because you're right. It's a whole different deal than, going out there, say, in June or something like that. So we'll talk about that right after we talk about my good friends with the Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer, who, man, you got to get your rig in shape. And these guys are the guys that are going to do it. I want to tell you about my friends at Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer. They're proud authorized dealers of the top truck, trailer, and snowplow brands in the world, like CM Truck Beds, Diamond C Trailers, and of course, Boss Snowplows. Even though we've seen the weather getting a bit more like spring lately, I highly doubt snowplowing season is completely over with. So be ready for those next several snowstorms that we always seem to get before Old Man Winter is ready to leave us alone until next winter. Now, even if we do get off easy for the rest of this year, why not have the best snowplow in the world sitting on the ready for next season? Of course, I'm talking about a Boss snowplow from Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer. A Boss snowplow will get the job done quickly and perfectly every time it snows. So if you're ready to move that snow the heck out of your way for the rest of this season, or you want to be ready for next season, go talk to my friends at Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer, or give them a call about a Boss snowplow. They'll help you get a Boss snowplow for your truck, tractor, ATV, or whatever you want to plow with. Then you'll be prepared for the snow that is still coming our way soon, or in the next plowing season. Best of all, the gang at Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer can install your new Boss snowplow, show you how to operate it, and show you how easy it is to put on or take off your rig. While you're talking to the pros at Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer, be sure and ask them about their CM truck beds, Diamond C dump trailers, and all the other wonderful things that will make short work of all your upcoming spring cleaning projects. If you're in the area, stop by 5680 Expressway in Missoula, or see them online at rmtte.com. That's rmtte.com. Yeah, there is no better place to go than Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer in Missoula, and online at rmtte.com. So are you ready for them to make your life a whole lot easier? We are back here on the Montana Outdoor Podcast. Joe Herbold is my guest. We're talking about the 2025 Jerry Johnston Memorial Tough Guy Tournament, which is coming up there at Hell Creek. For those of you who think you're tough guys or tough gals, you should get out there and do this tournament. It's a lot of fun. It's competitive. And it's a great way, as Joe mentioned earlier, it's a great way to kind of get all your gear sussed out and in shape and going. So let's talk a bit about what the technique is. You can, what you typically do during this tournament, and what do you see other anglers out there doing to get these fish when, like you were just saying before the break, I mean, the ice has just come off the lake. So talk about what you do.
Well, like I say, it's just a fairly slow presentation. Hit the jig out and let it sink to the bottom, and lift it up and let it drop, and lift it up and let it drop. And of course, the techniques are a little different now, complements of our technology, running live scopes. You can try to find those fish, and once you find an area, you can fish it, or some of the young guns, they fish specific fish with their live scope.
Yeah,
I call them snipers. Now Bob, talking with him, when they pulled into that location, they used their live scope, and yes, there were fish there. Once they found that those fish were in that location, they just shut their live scope off and just fished it, because they knew the fish were there, and they just cruised through that area and pitched jigs and found those fish. So it really isn't, it's not real complex. Just pitch it out and bring it back.
But your presentation is a little slower than you would say later in the year, huh?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And of course, a lot of guys, they like using big minnows this time of year, probably shiners or probably a 4-inch minnow or maybe even larger.
Mhm.
That isn't necessarily so. I mean, we catch a lot of fish on, say, fathead minnows as well. So to
Mhm.
say that you have to have big minnows would be a misnomer.
Now,
But
is there a certain size jig or color that seems to work a little better that time of year?
I don't think so, Rager. I think jig size is a personal preference. You're not, typically those fish are going to be a little shallower, uh, you know, probably in that 10 to 15 foot zone. So, I would say probably a 3/8 jig would be plenty.
Mhm.
When you're fishing deeper water, you want to go up probably to a 1/2 ounce or even heavier jig. But no, so I think jig size is just a personal preference.
Okay.
Color, uh, gee, I would probably a black jig. Who knows?
Yeah.
Uh,
Well,
but
that's a trial and error thing. You got to get out there and do it. Uh, Now, one of the questions I always like to ask people, Joe, is how long do you give a jig and that before you say, okay, that's not working? Because I always find that interesting. Everybody's got kind of a different rule of thought on that. But what's your go-to of before you switch out a particular outfit that you've got going?
that's the $1 million question, Rigger. When do you switch? And my problem, I'm not prone to switching because, my attitude is, gee, when I switch, how do I know that time to time I switched, the fish didn't change too?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So I guess it's more of a location type thing. Like in that time of year, if I pull into a location and I'm pitching my jig around and I don't catch anything, move to another spot,
Mhm.
pitch your jigs, and then if there's nothing, move to another spot. So that's probably more the factor in the spring is you're trying to find the fish. You know that they're going to pick up that minnow, and so you're moving locations trying to find the fish more than you're changing the presentation.
Mhm.
Uh, During the summer, I'm fairly happy just, when I'm pulling rigs, kick my feet up and pull a rig until a fish bites.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody's got their deal. I think the live scope maybe has changed that a little because you can kind of see if it's stimulating the fish, and if they're just not giving it a second look or anything, then maybe that helps a little. I don't know. I mean, if we knew that and we could read a fish's mind, we'd all be expert anglers, but that day hasn't happened yet. So before we wrap up here, let's go over the basics one more time. First of all, how if somebody wants to compete in this year's Jerry Johnston Memorial Tough Guy Tournament, how do they get more information and sign up?
Well, you're probably going to get some information on the Outdoor Radio Show website.
Oh, without
so you
a
should be
doubt.
able to find that there once you get that up.
Mhm.
Our Walleyes Unlimited website should have an entry blank in it.
Yep.
Walleyes Unlimited of Montana, or what, Montana Walleyes Unlimited. Well, make the search Montana Walleyes Unlimited, and that will should get you to the website. I think
Yeah.
it's walleyesunlimited.net.
Yeah, I'll put the link there. It
And,
is. It's MontanaWalleyesUnlimited.net. And I'll have a link in there in the podcast description. Click on that. That'll give you some information. Of course, MontanaOutdoor.com. I'll put that link in there as well. And you can check that out. And that way you can get the info, get yourself signed up. And on MontanaOutdoor.com, we always keep everybody posted as these get a little closer. But we're just a little over a month away from this tournament, but it's well worth it. Now, how many teams can compete in the tournament? Do you know that offhand?
Well, I think they probably limited it to 75. Historically, Rigger will have somewhere around 40 teams in it.
Mm-hmm.
And, talking about that, the tough guy is fun. And of course, that was kind of the gist of it when we started the tough guy years and years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It was fun. And people would say, what about the rules meeting? We have to have a rules meeting. And at the rule, and of course, most everybody who fishes the tough guy has probably fished a tournament, or they're aware of what fish have to be 14 inches. You have to touch.
Mm-hmm.
And so for the rules meeting, I would stand up and say, we leave at 8, be back by 4, and don't cheat.
There you go. Keep it simple. Why get all complicated, right?
And of course, now that it's become more competitive, we've had to invoke a few more rules, a
Sure.
little bit more implementation. So it's not quite as fun as it used to be, Rigger.
Mm-hmm. Well, and on those links, you'll be able to find all that info. And then the banquet, can anybody come to the banquet, or do you need to be a member of Walleyes Unlimited?
No, it's open to the public, and you don't have to. We don't pre-sell tickets to the banquet. Just show up.
Mm-hmm.
I believe I'm not sure what it used to be $25. It might be more now.
Mm-hmm.
But what a fabulous prime rib dinner, and of course the Jordan chapter has we sell like 600 tickets for a $10,000 cash prize.
Wow, $10,000 cash prize! Holy smokes!
Mm-hmm.
Well, now that's well worth the time right there. Plus, the banquet's just a hell of a lot of fun, and that's going to take place on April 25th, so the night before the tournament.
Yep.
Because this is real early, and you've been gracious to give us so much time. But one last question: because of the time of the year, give us kind of a recommendation for people that have never fished the Tough Guy tournament. What do you recommend for clothes and that to wear, because it gets damn cold out there?
Well, obviously you got to have winter boots, probably
Mm-hmm.
your car, and your coveralls, Carhartts or whatever, or really good rain gear.
Right.
But yeah, you dress for the worst, and the thing that people forget, Rigger, even if it's say a 60-degree day, we're running across that 38-degree water at 50 miles an hour. So the wind chill is pretty severe in your boat.
Yeah. Yeah.
So even if it's a nice day, you have to dress for inclement weather.
Yeah. Thus the name Tough Guy. So you tough guys and tough gals, just dress right and you'll have a blast. And just make sure your watercraft's in good shape and all that, because you don't want to get stuck out there when it can be a little chilly. So anyway, it's a fun tournament. It's well worth the time. It gives you a great way and a good reason to get all your stuff ready to go. And then, if you've never done it, it's a great way to discover another place on Fort Peck Reservoir and visit the great town of Jordan, which is just a wonderful place to go visit. So anything else before we go, Joe?
Rigger, I just, thank you to you and the Outdoor Radio Show crew for everything you guys always do. And yeah, exactly. I'm a tough guy. People want to come, their opportunity to catch a big walleye it's always there. And yeah, great. Come and do the banquet and the tournament.
Yeah.
And make it a walleye weekend, Jordan.
Yeah. Yeah. You'll have a blast. All right. Thank you so much, Joe, for your time and all that. And we look forward to seeing you on that leaderboard maybe this year, huh?
Boy, that'd be a shock.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of like seeing me and the captain ever on a leaderboard. Dream on,
Well,
right?
I keep thinking we need to have a seniors division, Rigger.
Yeah. A seniors division just for seniors who don't have good luck in tournaments. We'd probably pack that tournament for sure.
No kidding.
All right, buddy. Well, thank you so much for this great information, and I'll have all the links and all that up on the podcast description there. Again, Joe Herbold, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Rigger.
There you have it. We have got a great tournament ahead of you here this April. Make plans and do it. If you have more questions, of course, you can always click on my email link right there in the podcast description, and I can send you whatever info you need. We've got lots of other great podcasts coming up. We've got some really cool things here that we're going to be talking about. All right, folks, take care. Be good to each other, and we'll see you next time here on the Montana Outdoor Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Montana Outdoor Podcast. It has been brought to you in part by Superior Hardwoods of Montana, home of the largest selection of in-stock high-end wood products and flooring in the western United States. Let them guide you through the woods at superior-hardwoods.com. And by Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer in Missoula, home of Boss Snowplows, CM Truck Beds, and Diamond Sea Trailers. Just go to rmtte.com for more information. So what did you think of today's podcast? Send your questions and comments to Downrigger at montanooutdoor.com. We should be dropping a new podcast this next Saturday. Until then, we will see you soon out in Montana's great outdoors.